Aside from Percy and Annabeth, only one other demigod can say that they survived the journey through Tartarus. Two of the most powerful demigods fighting for their lives against the most powerful enemy in the most dangerous place. And then, Nico di Angelo. Until recently, it was only said that he survived Tartarus. But in The Sun and the Star, we finally got to see what exactly happened to him down there. So in this video, I go over Nico's complete journey in Tartarus. Nico had been navigating the underworld for a few hours, trekking across the fields of Asphodel and Hades' palace, before finally reaching his destination, a dark hole in the ground extending all the way down to Tartarus. He steeled his nerves, reminding himself of his goal, to find and close the doors of death so that monsters could once again die. Suddenly, Echidna, the mother of monsters that Percy fought, appears behind Nico, accompanied by the Chimera. They say they aren't here to fight, but simply to make sure Nico doesn't lose his nerve. They slowly force Nico towards the pit, until he loses his footing and plunges into Tartarus. Nico fell for an eternity, finally crashing to the ground in darkness. Guided by the light of his sword, he staggered towards a faint red glow. Emerging from the shadows, Nico sees Tartarus for the first time. The mountains and valleys, the blood-red landscape and green clouds, the black trees, and of course, Gaia's army in the middle of it all. 3 monsters from the army spot him, so Nico does the logical thing and runs. As he runs, getting more tired with every step, wolves appear behind him, biting at his ankles. Nico desperately fights them off, searching for any cover, and notices a person waving to him on his right, next to a white house. Why is a person in Tartarus? Why is a house in Tartarus? All these questions flooded Nico's mind, but with the wolf still chasing him, and with nowhere better to go, Nico sprinted for the house. He made it just in time, crashing to the floor as the doors closed behind him, blocking out the wolves. In front of him stood Nemesis, the goddess of retribution. She talked with Nico, telling him he must endure what's ahead of him, and giving him 3 pomegranate seeds, the seeds that kept him alive in his death trance in the Mark of Athena. Nico questions why she's helping a demigod, and she says that after Percy vouched for the minor gods, she's taken an interest to demigods. Nemesis also warns Nico to beware of her mother, something that becomes important later in the story. As the wolves begin breaking down the door, Nemesis quickly gives Nico directions to the doors of death before teleporting him away from the monsters. Nico found himself on a ridge, littered with black outcroppings. Of course, Nico's curiosity got the better of him, and he poked one with his sword, quickly finding out that they were monster regeneration pods. He killed the monster that came out, and remembering the directions he was given, began following the red river of flames in the distance towards the doors of death. He walked for hours, sticking to the left side of the river Phlegethon, growing more exhausted with every step. He began losing his mind, hunger and thirst taking over, hallucinating the ground shifting underneath him. As he neared the forest, his next destination on the Tartarus roadmap, a realization sprung to his head that almost made him lose his sanity. He realized that this place he was in wasn't just a place, but that Tartarus was the body of the primordial being. Nico crumbled from the thought, breaking down, and in his lowest moment, overcome by thirst and fear, he decided to take his chances and drink from the river Phlegethon. Luckily, he did not burst into flames. Instead, his thirst and brain fog clearing away. Nico stood back up, gathered his courage, and entered the forest in front of him. He made his way through the forest for days or months. He didn't really know how long. He continued drinking from the Phlegethon to heal himself, and finally made it to the far side of the forest, where the fog lifted to reveal a wall of darkness, seemingly the end of Tartarus. The river Phlegethon turned away, revealing a dirt path leading to a dark archway. As Nico made his way down the path, he heard a voice behind him, and not wanting to be seen, darted through the pathway and hid behind a black tree. Nico peered from behind the tree as Hypnos entered and began talking to someone. Their conversation cut off, and suddenly, black smoke wrapped around Nico as he was lifted from behind the tree and found himself face to face with Nyx. Remember when Nemesis warned Nico about her mother? Well, this is it, and Nico had never been more terrified in his life. He was completely overwhelmed by the power in front of him. Nyx began telling Nico to embrace his darkness, that he belonged down here in Tartarus, and that he must stop running from who he is. Nyx tells him to choose, and just then, they're interrupted by the giants Ephialtes and Otis, who came to grab Nico and use him as bait in their plan to trap the 7. Nico tries to make a run for it, diving under the giant's legs and searching for an exit from Nyx's garden. But instead, he stumbles upon the Mansion of Night, a living structure made from thousands of tiny insects, and that was his final straw. Able to now see everything around him in his truest form, Nico crumbled to the ground. The horrors of Tartarus, and now this, was too much for any demigod. As the giants pick up Nico and place him in a bronze jar, Nyx calls out to him, saying that if he survives, they'll continue their conversation and she will force him to choose. Nico's last thought as the lid was placed on the jar was, "I failed them all." And that's it. Nico's journey through Tartarus. He obviously didn't make it out himself, or even really succeed on his mission, but the fact that he was able to survive Tartarus and survive Nyx alone is an indicator of the type of person Nico is. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.